This conference will now be recorded.
With the exception of our presenters, would everyone please make sure that your microphones are muted and your cameras are turned off until you wish to ask a question towards the end of the program. We do so wish that we could be hosting this event in person, but we continue to do our part and follow the guidelines that Central District Health has put in place as we try to control the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. But first, allow me to tell you about an event that we are having in person in August, and that is our 18th annual Chamber Golf Tournament at Shadow Valley Golf Course. This year's event will be a little bit different in light of COVID, but we still have a great event planned for those attending. This year's event features tee times instead of shotgun start. Individual carts will be provided to those that request them, and contactless check-in will be provided. All of your on-course activities will be the same. You know, if you can't social distance on a golf course, then where can you? We'll be hosting a virtual awards ceremony on Monday, August 24th, so be sure to tune in for that fun event as well. There are still a few team spots available, so please register your team today. Would also like to remind everyone to keep Meridian healthy and open for business. That means stay home if you're feeling sick. Maintain your social distance of 6 feet or more. Wear a mask in public where you cannot maintain the proper social distance. And be sure to wash your hands thoroughly and frequently. There are Meridian businesses out there that are taking your health and safety very seriously. Please do your part to support them and to keep them open for business. We're very pleased to have TDS Fiber sponsor this two-part series. Representing TDS Fiber today is Scott McDonald. Scott was born and raised here in the Treasure Valley. Graduating Nampa High School, Scott joined the United States Navy right after high school, where he retired after 20 years. He settled in St. George, Utah, and started his career with TDS. He's been with TDS for 5 years. He started in the warehouse and shortly thereafter became a field service technician, going and setting up homes and businesses. He also repaired and troubleshot problems within the system. Last November, Scott transferred to be a commercial account executive and saw that TDS was coming to the Treasure Valley. Since all of his children are grown except his 4-year-old daughter, Scott quickly volunteered for the opportunity to come home and introduce everyone to TDS and the services they have to offer. If you'd please welcome Scott McDonald. I'm going to turn over the presentation for a few moments to our sponsor and Scott McDonald. Scott, let me find you on the list here and I'll give you control.
All righty.
There you go, sir.
Thank you much, sir. So how's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
So one of the things that I've enjoyed about TDS, and I was excited for coming, is to get this going and introduce TDS to everybody that we have in my hometown, basically. I fell in love with TDS when I was in St. George. I had them before I started working for them. I was in St. George for 15 years, probably the longest I've ever lived anywhere besides home, where I got to go until I was 18. But as you see, you'll see my phone number and my email address. So if anybody has questions or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to take those answers. Now, this is based on challenges during COVID. TDS, we didn't really have challenges. We are already set up where we can work remotely. It was just a matter of scheduling how to get everybody out of the office, making sure we had the right tools and our computers all at home and all our bandwidth. Some of you guys probably found that out really quickly. Am I correct? With that, though, our biggest stuff we found was our remote possibilities and helping our businesses come about and make sure that they had it. Some of the tools that I will be showing and representing were some of the things that we actually pushed together rather quickly for a lot of our customers. I mean, we've already had them in place. I've got the remote work, which helps it. Your telephones go to your cell phone. I have voice to email, anything like that that comes through, anything where you can be readily accessible. Again, our internet access up to 1 gig, dedicated internet access. Our voice services. TDS has been in the phone industry for over 50 years. It's sort of kind of like going using that. They have that down pat. They've included our hosted and managed voice over internet protocols. And then also at the same time, we have our Metro Ethernet. With our mobility packages, some of these, we have the simultaneous rings. So basically, we will not work from station to station calls. If you were to call my desk phone right now, you'll actually be able to get me on my cell phone, get me via my email or anything like that. I have the call forward unreachable. Doesn't work with a standard PBX system if it goes down. And then I have the sequential ring. This also, again, does not work from station to station, so inside. So you must dial a 10-digit number. Again, you can call my cell phone. It'll ring at the same time. Also, if for some reason your business were to, while you're out of it, burn down, anything like that, you can do the disaster recovery. You can pull everything up, see who missed or anything like that, especially if you're not able to get in at the same time. There's also a whole lot more that comes with that. We have our extension dialing between locations. We also have our customers who are set up under single enterprises with groups. So in St. George, Utah, we have a very large company called Paparazzi. Anybody aware of that company? Sort of kind of like Scentsy here in Boise area. They have multiple locations throughout St. George because they were growing so quickly. With the one main, they are able to control all their phone lines off of their one main office that they just barely got built. That's something we've been working with them quite extensively. Their production managers can go from building to building and never miss a phone call, always able to access their phones. You also have unlimited local and long distance with these phones. So everything that comes in is no different, whether it's through your cell phone or whatever. It doesn't go off your cell phone data. It actually goes through your phone systems. We also have our web portal access. You're able to control anything. So if you were having to go to somebody's cell phone and that cell phone got damaged, they went out to the lake or whatever, it sank, you can get in there through your mobile access and change that phone number so it can dial to somebody else. It also has auto attendant where it can be set up permanently to go to certain numbers or number searches. And then we have Total Talk, which is for our smaller businesses. These are businesses that usually have 1 to 4 phones. It's not as much as it doesn't have a lot of the same things as the fiber. Sorry, my earphone fell out there. This actually is still voice over internet. It also has the voice to email. It also has the rings, and it also requires the high-speed internet. It's also the Polycom VVX411 IP phones. The nice thing about these, and this is where, say, our restaurants in St. George, when they started going through the delivery, come pick up and everything else, there is a business there that no matter what, you could not call through. So, once you can't get a hold of a business, you just call the next one. You're hungry, you want your food. He was having his employees turn around and give out their cell phone numbers. They weren't comfortable with it. We got him switched over to the Total Talk because he only had 2 phone lines. He was able to put his cell phone numbers in there. No one knew whose cell phone belonged to who, so you couldn't have that one person that was always bugging an employee after the fact. These are our very simple phones. And then obviously, as we're coming in, you now have a local face and a local name. I have the referral program. Anybody that you refer over to me, you can earn upwards of $500. Just make sure you go to that website down at the bottom, put in your information, the company information. Once they are installed, it can come over to you. Are there any questions that I can answer after this? You can reach out to me either via phone or email. Anything I can answer now?
Scott, if you want to just stay on, we'll definitely be able to take some questions at the end as well. So with that, let me take control back here real quick. All right, Scott, thank you again. And thank you for TBS Fiber for helping sponsor this two-part series. The Meridian Chamber of Commerce is led by some amazing board members representing some of the most established and visible businesses and organizations in Meridian. During the spring, and as an event of this situation unfolded with the coronavirus and the measures that were being taken, the board members of the Chamber not only helped guide the Chamber's response, but these individuals had their own organizations to manage. Everyone was impacted in some way by COVID-19, some more dramatically than others. Everyone had to adapt, pivot, and embrace change. Our board organizations were no different. This panel discussion and the one next Tuesday will allow us to hear from these organizations on what they're doing to cope with the impact of COVID-19. We have several questions that we'll ask of the panelists, and if time allows, we'll allow questions from the attendees. Please, you can enter your questions anytime in the chat feature of the GoToMeeting. Featured on our panel today is Jeffrey Hall with Northwest Commercial Advisors. Jeffrey is actually our past board chair. We also have Dr. Mary Ann Reynolds with the West Ada School District, Mr. Reed Brimhall with Scentsy, Mrs. Ashley Hanover with Idaho Central Credit Union. We have Mayor Robert Simonson representing the City of Meridian. We have Ramona Merrill with the Village at Meridian, and Cassie Fontaine with Mountain West Bank. Thank you all for participating in our discussion today. Let's make sure you're all unmuted, and looks like I've got all of your cameras, which is great. So let's get right to the questions and the discussion. The first question that I'd like to pose is, how was your organization impacted at the beginning of the pandemic? Specifically, was your forward-facing operations forced to close? And if you did, how did you adapt and continue services to your customers and clients? Ashley, you're first on my screen here, so we'll give you an opportunity. The question is on the shared screen if you need to refer back to it at any time.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having us all here. Hello, everybody. So Idaho Central, we were not forced to close by any of the stages, but we did make the decision as an institution to close our lobbies to the general public. What that meant for us, on March 20th, we shut the doors. We did leave all of our drive-through locations open. We did have our lobbies open and available by appointment only for those that needed face-to-face services, but we did most of our transactions, most of our operations drive-through, and then we actually adjusted a lot of stuff by doing more online portal things. We hired on a lot of our team members, or transferred a lot of our team members over to our video chat center, so a lot of our business moved to online. We had a lot of our team members that switched over to our contact center, so we had a lot of people answering phone calls, doing our live chat updates, things like that. So we had a lot of remote team members that were able to shift their jobs either in the lobby or move home and kind of focus on the online portal and then do the rest of the drive-through until we reopened our lobbies on May 4th.
Okay, excellent. Jeffrey, you're next on my screen. Tell us a little bit about your operation. What did the pandemic do to you in the beginning stages for your forward-facing operations?
Great, thanks, Sean. Good morning, everyone. Well, in our industry, of course, we're in real estate. We're based here in Meridian. We do the commercial development side and also commercial brokerage. This absolutely slammed on the brakes for us. Our investors were spinning. They didn't know what to expect out of this. They were pulling back on deals, canceling transactions. A lot of transactions ceased that were just getting ready to launch as far as development, construction. And once everybody started figuring out how this was playing out with PPP dollars and everything, they kind of figured, okay, there's a little bit of help out there. Honestly, the restaurants, the retailers, they're being impacted the most. We are seeing that every day. At the beginning, they hadn't got their PPP dollars yet. They didn't know how they're going to make their rent payments. So our business we were just as busy as ever then, because we were doing workouts for retailers and tenants with their leases and just trying to help them to be able to keep their doors open or reopen their doors. Eventually, you know, here we have people, they're back open for business, unlimited, and now we're starting to see it go backwards again. And so everybody's freaking out again at this point, and the PPP dollars are running out. And so we really think that we are going to be super busy again trying to help retailers and tenants to stay within their premises and hold on for whatever this is going to bring. So we haven't slowed down at all. We've been extremely busy. At first, like I said, the brakes got slammed on, but then everything started picking up, and investors more than ever are just, I mean, I think it's because so many people are fleeing to Idaho. Investors are doing the same. They're following that flow, and they love Idaho, and they want to continue to invest here, and especially in Meridian.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Ramona, he was mentioning retail. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how the pandemic and the things affected you initially?
Sure, thank you, Sean. In the very beginning, the village at Meridian was about 90% closed, with just essential businesses like Boise Co-op and some of the others left open throughout. Our first priority was reaching out to all 100 businesses in Meridian and about 30 more in Nampa, and finding out what all their needs were and asking how we could help. Everyone was just in a little bit of shock, as Jeffrey mentioned, and confusion. We found we had to be extremely flexible in providing any way we could to get their doors back open. So we started talking about curbside pickup, and we very quickly got the restaurants and the quick serve restaurants open again with curbside. And that required it, just from my standpoint, creating a lot of new signage and information and media so that people would know that they were open. And then the focus going on simultaneously was getting our whole health and safety procedures for a project that's that big. If you can just imagine what we had to do for signage and floor stickers and everything for social distancing and other health and safety procedures. Make sure we doubled actually the cleaning staff and all of those things, and making sure everybody had the right PPE. And then the marketing efforts shifted completely. You know, we're very event driven. We're always offering something new for the public, and all of that had to stop and be canceled. And then so we shifted all of those efforts into how can we help the community. And so everything that we worked on for the next 30 days was organizing multiple blood drives and no contact food drives and care packages for nurses and first responders, and even diaper drives. There was a great need for that for people that couldn't afford them or couldn't find them. And so that's all of the marketing efforts went to supporting the community. And then, as Jeffrey mentioned, of course, with as many restaurants and retailers that we have, it really, we all focused on the financial side of it and making sure that everybody had the right information on how they could get help, especially the locally owned. And then how can we work on helping them with financial relief and deferrals. And so we've been extremely busy. And very similar situation as Jeffrey mentioned. We're finding out, though, that a lot of the businesses, they're not back to normal sales, but they're surprised in Idaho. Their home offices, those that are national chains, are really surprised how well the stores in Idaho are doing. So we're making it through.
Thank you, Ramona. Cassie, would you maybe share with us your role within Mountain West Bank, and then we'll hear your response to the question.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie Fontaine. I'm in a commercial lending role with Mountain West Bank, and so I'm a little bit different in not into like the retail side of the bank, but I'm located in our financial center, so there is a branch here in the building. So we went through the same things as Idaho Central, basically. We opted to close our lobbies for a short time, and they're back open now, assisting our customers through, phone, online, email, every other way we can, and which worked fine. It worked well. We're still trying to limit our contacts with customers on the outside, still trying to do things remotely from home. And it seems to be working well. It's definitely a different way of banking these days, but it's going well.
Thank you, Cassie. Mr. Brimhall, you would introduce yourself and your role within Scentsy, and share us how your organization was impacted at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay, sure, Sean. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Scentsy. Early on, we have 6 distribution centers scattered across 11 countries, and 2 of the distribution centers were deemed by local authorities as being non-essential. We were instructed to cease operations. That was one here in Meridian and one in Kentucky. We responded to those local authorities to remind them that we, among other products, manufacture cleaning supplies, hand cleaners, sanitizers, counter cleaners, laundry detergent. And in both situations, they immediately changed their position and allowed us to stay open. Early on, we also attempted to have as many of our employees whose jobs allow it work remotely. So most of our headquarters building, finance, legal, HR, etc., have been working at home. I'm in my 21st week now of working from home. I've been in the office a total of 7 times since March 5th. Some of our employees, however, manufacturing and distribution, you simply can't do that remotely. So we immediately set about putting together distancing protocols and providing masks and gloves to all of our employees. And early on, we had a difficult time getting adequate supplies of masks and gloves to do that, but managed to. Well, that's kind of where we started.
Okay. Thank you, Reed. Appreciate that. Now we've heard from some private industry. Let's hear a little bit from some of the public sector. Mayor Simonson, as the operations of the city, how was that impacted at the beginning of the pandemic, and what did you do specifically for the forward-facing operations to the public?
Well, Sean, some of our forward-facing operations didn't change, especially in the things that I think most citizens really think about, police and fire services. But the interesting thing was our calls for service really went down in both of those areas. So early on, there were some adjustments within the shift work for at least our police department, because I think the real concern was having our employees go out and potentially on calls where COVID could be involved, trying to make sure that there was reduction in risk to them in the work that they were doing, since they were going to people, and especially our fire department, going to people that may be sick from that standpoint. So it was really just looking at the operation. How do we operationally keep our employees safe to ensure that we're able to provide the services? Because, as a government, we had, we were always considered essential, and any changes that we made were not because we were told to, but because we felt it was in the best interest of the residents and our employees. On some of the back end stuff, though, we did make changes. We did close down City Hall to the community and the public, and encourage people to go online and remote in nature. And I think for government, and people always don't think governments are innovative and can move efficiently. For our operations, we transitioned to mostly online services in most everything that we did. And one of the areas that I think that was really visible, especially to people maybe in Jeffrey's world, was in how we were able to continue with the public hearings and land development applications, and our community development department. Again, putting in protocols and operations. I know that there were some times they were doing inspections using remote technologies, also known as phones. The video features of phones to get our work performed from that standpoint. But we really saw a lot of people step up and look at how they could do their job differently. But it also took cooperation and promotion from the public to understand that they may have wanted to come in and always pay their water bill every month the same way, but they learned to use the technology, which had been around for 10 years, but they were now more open to doing things in different ways, and we're continuing to encourage and promote that with members of the community while we are open at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Reynolds, we all know the schools were definitely impacted this last spring, and but can you maybe share with us some of the things that we may not have known as you were adapting and switching to an online learning platform in the spring?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. It's nice to see you, be with you. I would say the shock of having to close down 55 schools overnight was probably one of our greatest challenges, and gathering all of our employees together to make sure that we could continue some kind of learning environment for our kids was horrendous. So what many people don't know is that when we first started, we really had to think about safety on the part of our students. We had to make sure that they had shelter. We had to make sure that they had food, and that for 40,500 students, it's amazing when you know that we have 4,500 of our students receive services in special education. 5,500 students receive services through Title I. We have 1,300 students who are in our English as a second language program. And we have 542 students who are homeless. So that very first week, we just had to make sure our kids were okay and that they were safe, and that we were setting up ways to make sure that they could receive their meals. And that very first week, when we began the programs for nutrition, we served, the very first day we did that, we served over 9,000 meals in our community. So that was pretty incredible. And then the next part of our teaching and learning process really had us working to figure out how to provide resources to moms and dads and guardians at home in a remote way. And that was new to most of our teachers, not all. Our academies have always worked remotely and used those programs. So we had some good models to look at. But having our elementary teachers putting together packets of learning each week was pretty phenomenal when you consider that they were doing it remotely through Teams, through Microsoft Teams. And then checking out devices to our seniors. The very first thing we wanted to make sure was that our seniors were not compromised in terms of graduating, and handing out devices to our high school students, and then handing out devices to our middle school students. And the incredible understanding and patience of our parents as they struggle to help their kids at home was just incredible. The other part that was interesting, and what many people might not know, is just the business side of education. We have over 5,000 employees, so we had to quickly adapt to looking at who could work from home remotely, how to set up alternate schedules so that part of payroll and HR came in one day and part of them came in another day. So just those logistical kinds of things, and making sure that the business still ran, that we were still meeting the needs of our contractors, that Pleasant View Elementary continued to be built and is almost completed, that the work on Hawaii High School continued, and that our other projects to improve our schools went on. So, I mean, that's just incredible to think all of the work that went into redesigning our business from the ground up.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. All of you kind of touched on question 2. So let me kind of phrase it a different way. What have you learned about your workforce with the changes that you've implemented? Dr. Reynolds, maybe if you would continue that, what are some of the unique things that you've learned about your workforce now that they've had to adapt? You've changed how they operate. We know we all have amazing employees, but what have you learned?
Well, thank you, Sean. You know, one of the things I've known and loved about West Ada since I started teaching in 1973 is that the people who live and work in this community embrace change. You don't have any choice if you live in our community. Things do not stay the same for very long. So just watching our people step up to the plate and to be so creative and trying to help figure out ways to make kids still feel connected to the schools. The teachers, it was hard for our teachers not to see the kids. And I think it was hard for the kids not to see their friends and to come to school. So that what a lot of people don't know is how emotional this was for us. We love our students. We love those kids and we miss them. We always knew we loved them, but I guess we didn't realize how very much we love them. The other thing that I would share with you just from a business perspective has to do with the unsung heroes in our school district. And I just have to commend all of our custodians, all of our registrars, all of our classified staff who behind the scenes kept the wheels on the bus. They kept everything going, and they don't often get recognition or praise, but I had no idea what a victory sprayer was until our custodians showed me. Literally, if you would go to a school and watch the process the custodians would go through to make sure the buildings were disinfected. And in our own building here at the district office, it was just incredible to see that and to be so appreciative of all of our folks. I think, you know, the other thing that I would say is I don't know if this will make sense to anyone. Did you know that educators are perfectionists? We set the bar pretty high, and this was a struggle for us that we had to very quickly change our entire system in the air. We were literally building this plane in the air, and we weren't always sure we knew what we were doing. And every day when we thought we had something in place, the guidance would change, and then our decisions would have to change. Rhonda's shaking her head. She knows, she's painfully aware of how some of those things impacted what we were trying to do. So that my observation of all of our staff is, to their credit, they do not tolerate mediocrity. And this was hard for us because we know we could make it so much better.
Thank you. Mayor Simonson, you'd mentioned that some of the city hall had been working remotely. What did you learn about your workforce that you moved to working remotely, working from home?
I think what we learned is not everyone likes to do it. You know, and some people need the touch and feel of people to feel valued and part of the team. But at the same time, we learned that some people didn't want to come back when we brought them back into the building because they liked it so much. And, you know, I think from a management level decision, I mean, when I stepped in, we didn't have a remote work policy. It was one of the first things I started working with our IT director on, and we just had to move it along really quickly once we realized that that's how we were going to be functioning for a while, but to at least get something in place. But you know, it really, while you can do policies and you can have people come to the building every day or work from home, the different personality types and the ways and the jobs. Some people work well in some instances and others don't, and you have to be able to modify and flex to a certain extent to help get the most out of what people need as to do their job and what they need as people that you care about.
Thank you. Reed, you'd mentioned the time that you've been home. You probably hold the record for this panel group as far as being home. With working with an international company, what have you learned about your workforce in this? I mean, you're probably using computers as much as you did before, but everyone's working a little bit differently.
Well, that's true, and there are a variety of aspects of it. Obviously, we've tried in administrative areas where you can work from remote locations to do that. And most of our administrative departments are still doing that. There are unique circumstances occasionally where someone needs to work in the office, and each of our vice presidents has to authorize in those administrative departments. If somebody's going to go in the office to work, a vice president has to approve that before they go in. When they get to the building, they get their temperature taken. They have to wear a mask. They can take their mask off in their own offices. But if they go to the elevator, they go to the restroom, anything like that, down the hall to talk to a colleague, you have to put the mask back on. Now, our manufacturing and distribution, product development, the engineering aspects, they're more difficult to do that with. You kind of have to be there to make all that happen. So we've established distancing protocols. We've actually established routes through the distribution center, one-way routes, kind of like you see in places like Walmart, and in the manufacturing center to keep our people distanced. They're all wearing masks and so forth. That, in some cases, has been an interesting problem because if you're in the distribution center picking and pulling orders to be boxed and shipped, you're moving around a lot on a day when the temperature hits 105 degrees outside and the air conditioning system's running as hard as it can. We've had some people actually get lightheaded and overheated from wearing masks. And we've had to give them more frequent breaks, a lot more liquids available to them, and have their supervisors watch for people who look like they're getting exhausted and pull them off the line to give them a chance to rest. Our sales consultants have shifted from face-to-face parties to distance parties, Facebook parties, a variety of different types of social media. And one of the interesting things that's happened to us, we're sort of a counter industry. So when unemployment goes up, we have lots of people sign up because it's easy to get a job, to sell something, to make a little extra money to help pay the utility bill or a little extra groceries. So we've gone from 136,000 sales consultants worldwide in early March to 214,000 as of last week. So we've gotten much busier. Our biggest challenge right now is making sure we have adequate inventory available to be sold.
Thank you, Reed. Cassie, bank is a service industry. What have you learned about your workforce as they're dealing with the public, with the changes you've implemented?
That's great. I'm going to talk about it a little more from the commercial lending side. We have some people working remotely, some not. We weren't maybe as prepared as some other industries, at least in our bank. We didn't have very many people set up to work remotely, so we quickly shifted to get those that needed to be home set up and running. And since that time, we've adapted well, and most people have access to at least non-face customer-facing positions, but such as my own, so that we can work remotely. We can do GoToMeeting, Zoom, whatever it is that we need to do, and still work that way. I think we're finding the same mix. Some people like it and it works well for them. They're very productive. Some would prefer to be in the office. We kind of talked about it here in the bank the other day about some of us get caught up working maybe too much when we're working remotely, lose track of time, and definitely need to figure out how to set some structural boundaries there. That we're just doing a mix and it's working.
Thank you, Cassie. Ramona, from the village's point of view, what have you learned about your variety of workforce, or maybe even from your tenants' point of view? What have they learned about their workforce with all the changes they've implemented?
Yeah, I mean, starting just with the CenterCal staff, there's about 15 of us that work at the village and from CenterCal. And what I've learned from CenterCal is you would think their number one concern would be this $300 million asset, but their concern was about each employee. Was very, very surprising to me. I don't know if I've had that level of care for the employees in my career before. I haven't been to the village since 1st of March. So they've just been adamant. The only people that are really there, he was there on site sometimes, and then also the operations staff. So that was the first big thing that I learned. That the big impact is that we have 800 office workers at the village. So each one of those businesses have been working that out differently for their employees. And then we were hearing just really heartbreaking stories from store and restaurant and service employees that were being furloughed. You know, it's just kind of heartbreaking. We have about 1,200 of those that fit into that category. And so we were hearing some real heartbreaking stories and how impacted they were. So, and then there was a lot of confusion for store managers, especially if their home office is in New York City or in Florida or something, because the guidelines were different all around the country. They didn't know how to react to everybody, their stores all across the country. And so there was a lot of confusion from them. And we just fielded a lot of calls from people that really weren't getting the answers they needed from the national chains in the beginning. So our hearts really went out to all of those affected employees, and we're loving it as we see some of those faces come back. But as Jeffrey knows, you know, some will not come back, and there are more bankruptcies and happening across the nation. So those kinds of things are way heavy on us.
Excellent. Jeffrey, your workforce. Not sure it's a large one, but how have changes been implemented, or has it even really impacted your workforce that much, the way you operate?
So Sean, we're like an extended family. We have extended partners in what we do. So not only do we have our folks that work for us directly, but we also have our extended family, and that's our consultants, that's our appraisers, our commercial lenders, which we have on the call here, the city government, everybody from construction, development side, architectural. So we have to depend on all these folks because they're like our contract labor, I guess you can say. And for us, yeah, we have to adapt to everybody's circumstances. It has been a challenge, I can't lie. I mean, we've had delays on our end because of the workforce. Even, for example, some people who felt that, and we can't have everything rosy here, guys. So some people that felt that when they furloughed their folks, and their folks decided they're not going to come back because they're making more money on unemployment than coming back to work. That has been a challenge for us, absolutely. And luckily that has now ran out. So we are seeing people coming back to work, and hopefully the pace is going to pick up on stuff that we're dealing with. But overall, I mean, I work with a lot of people that are involved on the chamber board that are on this call right now, and it has been a pleasure to work with them, and we are just adapting to anything that comes forward.
Excellent. Ashley, what have you learned about the workforce at Idaho Central Credit Union with the changes that you've implemented across the company?
So it was actually pretty cool. We ended up moving about half of our staff to be able to go work from home, which has some challenges in and of itself. Obviously, we work with a lot of secured information, documents, member information. To watch our IT team pick up physical workstations and move them to individuals' homes and get them set up in their own home offices, watching our employees adapt, it's pretty cool. We have an internal Facebook page, and you know, the promotion and interaction of all of our employees was really cool. I mean, some people had their workstations set up on a fold-up table because they didn't have space at their house, but it was really cool to kind of watch everyone adapt their own different ways, and all of our teams work together to make sure that everyone who needs to work from home or has the ability to work from home can. I know that it was impacting a lot of departments differently. Some of the departments, like our outreach department, our business development team, even some of like our underwriters and stuff like that, they had to shift to help with the PPP loans or the influx of calls that we were getting to our call center, different things like that, which was really cool to see how quickly they learned a new role and a new position to help other teams out. Biggest thing that I know, one thing our CEO has really mentioned, obviously the ability to work from home is there, but for us specifically, Idaho Central, our culture is a big thing for us. So I know the idea of once we're able to safely congregate back to working in our offices and in our branches, things like that, that's going to be the shift. I know a lot of businesses have now seen the ability to be able to work from home, but our employees, for the most part, will still shift back. We love that people interaction. We love the culture that we get to build with each other. And I mean, even our jobs can be harder when we don't get to bounce ideas off of each other and congregate and share our thoughts and successes with each other. So it's cool to see that we all still want that same type of environment and workspace after all of this.
Thank you, Ashley. With that, I kind of, what is one new technique or best practice your organization is putting in place to better serve your customers or clients that was not in place before COVID? Ashley, you want to pick up there and take that? One best practice that wasn't in place before COVID.
So a lot of our practices were already in place. The amount of traffic we saw, similar to kind of what Mayor Simison was talking about as far as technology, the number of members that weren't comfortable with online banking before, how many of them shifted to our video chat centers and we're doing FaceTime conversations with our agents was incredible. It was really cool to see how much of our membership quickly picked up the technology aspect of banking and got a lot more comfortable with it. I think the idea of banking in the web was just very unsecure and unsettling for a lot of our members, but I think they became a lot more comfortable and realized there's still a human aspect to the online side of things. And so it's stuff that we already had there in place, but I think it's given us, moving forward, the ability to look at where we're going in the future, what our branches look like. We've even started to structure some of our branches differently because of it. We actually have video chat services in our new Star branch. The members can go in and sit down and video chat with someone if the lobby is too full or too busy. And a lot of our branches may take a shift that direction as things come up, just how we do banking, how banking is going to be looking different in the future because of this.
Thank you. Jeffrey, new technique or best practices that wasn't in place before COVID for your industry?
So we're definitely learning a lot more about COVID than we ever thought we were going to learn. So we are basically just looking at the future. We're looking at how it's affecting, and we're kind of planning for the worst. So when you talk about best techniques, that type of thing, it's like we are doing everything to minimize the interaction between us and our clients. For example, a lot of us here on this call that are involved in lending and that type of thing, we do closings. We now do virtual notary services. So we don't have to physically have people come in and sign their documents and everything in person. They can do it on a video chat just like this in front of the notary, show their identification, everything else like that. So we are adapting to the way of the times so we can continue to conduct business.
Okay, excellent. Ramona, the retail world is one that was disrupted long before COVID with online shopping and things. What are some of the techniques or best practices your stores or venues like the Village are doing now that you've been forced to change due to COVID?
Yeah, I think I can't name one. I think one thing that's been really well received, we didn't have 10-minute parking before, and people really love the ability to have that reserved parking stalls here and there to pick up food, and so that's or even the retailers are finding a lot of people order online and then pick up their things, so that's a cool change. And then I think we're going to be, you'll see going forward, complexes like us being a lot more flexible with store hours so that it helps reduce occupancy costs and allow people to be more profitable. And then of course the other big change is just the additional sanitation stations and all of those things. It's just a good health practice in general, and for flu or whatever is going on. So I think that's a change that a lot of retailers and you know, exposure to between the employee and the customer. I think we'll see that ongoing.
Thank you. Cassie, a best practice your organization is putting in place to better serve your customers that was not in place before.
I would, from my perspective, on the lending side, we started through the PPP loan process using DocuSign much more, and realizing that it was easy and effective. And we've also started using that on our new account side when needed, and it's worked really well. So hopefully we'll continue to expand those types of services.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Reed, from the financial side of Scentsy, you know, what's some of the best practices organizations put in place for, you know, your customers, or if it's not the financial side, what do you see as maybe the best new technique you're doing?
Well, we've had remote employees for some time now, not in large numbers like we have now. So we've had Microsoft Teams and Zoom and those kind of tools available. We're obviously using them a lot more. I'm averaging probably 16 or 17 video conference calls per week. So we're using that technology to help close the distance so we can coordinate activities and get things done. One of the things that came from that, you know, Scentsy holds a consultants convention every year. They've always been in person historically, various cities. And 10,000 consultants will show up. This year we decided that we would do a single one worldwide instead of one in the US and one in Europe and one in Australia. And we were going to do it remotely through video and distance communication. It gave a lot of consultants an opportunity to participate that never have before. We had 39,000 people log in and participate in that 2-day video conference, which has been seen by the consultants as a huge success for them because some of them simply wouldn't have otherwise have been able to participate. So now we're thinking about what do we do in the future and how do we tie some of that together and still get people together face to face.
Okay, that was definitely a big chat room. Mayor Simonson, something best practice the city's, you know, decided to put in place to better serve the customers or the public, that you may even keep in place going forward.
It's kind of two things, and one of them so simple, but if you're sick, stay home. I mean, we had a lot of people that would always try to work through sickness, but you know, it's a very simple practice that we need to be better, whether it's for this or anything else, because you don't know the impacts you're having on other people when you do it or the people at their home. But it's really video technology. You know, I've been trying to get remote testimony for our city council meetings for several years, but it was viewed as a nice to have and a little bit cost prohibitive for us to make the investments that we need to in our council chambers. Well, that has changed. You know, to allow the public to be able to, quite frankly, present or participate. You know, vacation yeah, I hate to say this, but vacations no longer matter. If someone wants to be in Hawaii, but there's a land use hearing that's taking place, they can take time out of their vacation and participate. And I think that's great from a public perception or public perspective. And also it's really, I think, getting our employees to utilize it. You know, for many executives, their schedules can get busy and maybe there's a meeting they want to get to, but they don't have time to the extra 45 minutes to travel to go to places. Well, that's now removed. I think people are going to be a lot more accepting of the people just joining remotely on meetings to take part.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Reynolds, I know the schools district has definitely adapted technology use quickly, but what's maybe just a simple thing that you've realized that better serves the students and things that you can keep in place even after we're done with COVID?
I'm not sure that it's simple, but what I'm really excited about is that we've created a virtual schoolhouse that meets the educational needs of kindergarten through 12th grade and can result in a diploma from the West Ada School District. So for our parents who are uncomfortable or anxious about sending their children back to a brick and mortar school, we have a completely online educational program. And as of today, we have over 1,200 students registered. So when you think about all of the schools of choice in the West Ada School District, I think we've added another great one to meet the needs of our parents and our kids.
Excellent, thank you. Kind of the last question I have, and then we'll see how quickly we can get through this, is specific to your industry. What do you see as either an opportunity or a threat for operating under our current conditions for long term? Dr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Sean. I would say the most important thing is we need our kids back. It seems like every email I get is from a parent who's very anxious and very worried about the learning gap that they have witnessed in their own kids since March. So just having our kids come back. But what that means is that all of the adults in our community have to change their behaviors. So if we really want our kids to come back, then everyone has to wear a mask. Like Mayor Simpson says, if you're sick, you have to stay home. Everyone has to wash their hands. Everyone has to social distance. Until there's a vaccine out, I don't know that there's any other chance that the public school system will have to bring the kids back to school. So I guess it's an opportunity and a threat. The other real, and many of you know, I've been in public education for 47 years. So, I mean, we've been through SARS, N1H1, head lice, influenza. I mean, we've been through all sorts of health issues. This one, nothing like this. But I will tell you, because of it, public education will never look the same again. I think it will look better than it's ever been. And I'm really excited about the possibilities of engaging kids through technology. These are digital natives. Kids are very adept at technology, and we should not underestimate the opportunities for them to learn in this new environment. So I just think we must keep challenging the adults to practice those behaviors to keep kids safe and to be very open to change.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Mayor Simonson, opportunities or threats for continued operation under our current situations?
Well, I'll go to threats, and I think just the threats of COVID are real to a workforce, especially when you have either a very highly trained workforce that their role is to interact with the public. And if there is sickness within that workforce, it's hard to provide the service that people pay for. I mean, it's like going to McDonald's and giving people money for a burger, but you got no one to give it to you. I mean, that's what citizens would expect when they call for a police officer and we're like, sorry, we don't have the personnel to come and deliver the service because they're out with COVID. So I think that's a real threat that we are constantly being mindful of is, we got to protect our people in the current environment to give them the service they expect and quite frankly have already paid for. So I'll leave it as a threat right now because I think the worst still could come as we get into the colder months. We really don't know what that impact will be, but yeah, happy Robert right now.
Thank you, Mayor. Reed, for your industry, what do you see as opportunities or threats under our current conditions?
Well, because of how counter-cyclical we are, we've picked up all these new consultants. We've also had an increased need for additional employees in manufacturing and distribution. We've hired over 800 new employees since April 1st. And of course, we don't know how long that'll continue. There is certainly confidence on our part that it'll continue into the fall just because this pandemic seems to be continuing. When unemployment numbers reduce drastically, we may see a reduction in the number of consultants. We kind of expect that. So we have to be prepared to be flexible in how many employees we have, how much production we expect to produce, how much we can sell, and over time, we're pretty sure that's going to bounce up and down. It'll be hard to predict.
Okay, thank you. Kind of the cyclatory still moving faster than it usually did. Cassie, opportunities or threats in the financial banking world? You're muted, Cassie. I'm sorry. There you go.
Sorry about that. Good question. And we are affected by pretty much every industry. So with our customers, and obviously some are thriving and some are struggling. And I think it's our challenge is to be adaptable, help our customers, particularly that are in need, work through those challenges. We need to be knowledgeable about the programs and funding sources, like such as the PPP loans, resources that can help our customers. We're trying to be very, very flexible. In my position, I deal with a lot of commercial real estate, so I'm affected by Jeffrey, what he's going through, and all of our partners are as well. So we're nervous about what's going to happen with the real estate market, both residential and commercial. We're worried about a lot of our customers. Our challenge is just staying on top of it, being in contact with them constantly, just really trying to understand where they're at and what they need and help them in any way we can. I think we also go through the same challenge of, an employee base, finding employees, good employees in this difficult time. So it's going to continue to be a challenge, and we're going to try to make this as positive as an environment to attract these people as we can.
Okay, Cassie, thank you. Ramona, opportunities and threats. And then my question is, am I ever going to get to see a new movie again?
Well, you brought up my main area of concern right now is that, our two big anchor tenants are Big Al's and Village Cinema, and we are trying very hard to get Village Cinema open by the end of this month. We're targeting August 21st. We're hopeful, but a lot of that is the movie theater experience is really affected by what's happening in California and Hollywood and the new movie releases and how that affects theater operations locally. So that's probably our hot button right now. And then, so yes, Sean, you should be able to see a new movie if they produce one. And then I mentioned before about our concern with the national bankruptcies in some retail and restaurant chains.
Okay. Jeffrey, with that, you're dealing with a lot of commercial things. What's opportunities or threats under our current conditions?
So this is what I believe is the best question yet, and I appreciate you coming up with it. So we have both opportunities and threats I think we should look at. First, let's talk about the good. The opportunities, of course, in our industry is, and also in the banking world, is that interest rates are historically, I mean, at the bottom, all-time low. It's making it great for us to go out and obviously get the dollars we need to do the projects we need to do for ourselves and for our clients. That's been amazing. The construction costs are down. From January until right now, we're actually down about 10% on construction costs. So our projects are penciling a lot better than they were before. So that's a great deal for us. We're really excited about that. Of course, with anything, technologies come into play. We just inked the deal today for the new Meridian driver's license, Ada County driver's license office, which will be right in Meridian. And on that deal, for example, for the last 2 years, we've been looking for a location that we can do 250 parking stalls. We're down to 100 parking stalls now because everything's being done online and by appointment only, which is making the experience at the driver services a lot better. And those type of things are going to continue to be great for us. So we've got great opportunities there. I'd say where our challenges are in our industry, obviously Ramona and I are on the same page. We are so concerned about consumer confidence in getting folks back into these businesses. At this point, a lot of the restaurants are only operating at 50% capacity. That doesn't pay the rent. And the fast serves, the quick serves with drive-throughs, for example, our Jack in the Boxes, they're doing incredibly well, but our sit-down restaurants are not. A lot of them, again, once this PPP runs out, we will be seeing the bankruptcies increase and we'll be seeing closings and then a lot of repurposing of space. That's also going to happen with the big box retailers. Of course, you've heard this thing called Amazon. That is a huge risk right now as people don't want to go out and shop. They're going to use Amazon more and our big box retailers are going to close or they're going to downsize or go primarily online. So these are things that we're looking at. These are real risk. And until we can get our community safe and out there to go to these businesses and support these businesses, that is the largest risk I see right now. And that is going to drive our commercial real estate market as far as the retail and the restaurant sector down, historically low. We're going to see more vacancy than, it's probably going to look like 2009 again, as far as the vacancy. And I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but I'm just being honest. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Ashley, specific to your industry, what are some opportunities or threats operating under the current conditions?
Similar to what Cassie had said, obviously opportunities being different ways that we can help membership. Our idea is to help our members achieve financial success, and it's hard to do that in certain ways. The way we look at loans is really different. I specifically work in the lending industry with the dealerships. Lending right now is insane. The dealerships, I don't know what brought this on, but they have sold more cars recently than I could possibly imagine. Inventory sitting on the lots at dealerships is about 30% of their normal capacity, and they can't get vehicles in. Most of our large dealerships selling pickups are out, or they have one on the lot, or they're taking in stuff on trade. So it's interesting to see different ways people are buying things, different ways we're looking at loans. Before all of this, we may not require as much as a lender as far as being able to approve people. And now we're checking with income and making sure people's full financial situations are looking to be able to handle the loans that they're asking for, just because if we're not evaluating them properly with all of the unknown going on, all of these people getting laid off and the uncertainty, we don't want to put someone into a loan that could possibly hinder their financial situation in the future. So just how we're evaluating our risk, our members' risk is very different now. It was pretty cool to see Idaho Central step up. We waived so many late fees and mortgage payments, the ability to do an unsecured personal loan at a really low interest rate to help for certain people who were trying to get on unemployment or weren't getting paid from unemployment. People whose situation was different, where they had to take more time off because kids were home, whatever the situation may be. So just how we're helping our members specifically as a whole, as an industry, it's very different. And obviously the economical impact as a whole, how we're looking at lending going into the future, how we're going to be able to do mortgages, things like that are all very different and unknown for us. Lending is really strong right now, but who knows where that will be and where that will stay with everything nationwide, because even though our economy is still fairly strong, nationwide it's hard to keep up with what's going on.
Ashley, thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists today. We are at the 1 o'clock hour, so thank you again for joining us, and thank you for all of you that are joining us today. This will be made available on our website shortly so that you can share this out for others that weren't able to attend. Thank you again once for TDS Fiber for sponsoring this two-part series. Be sure to join us next Tuesday for the second part of the series, where we'll hear from Empire Title, Idaho Power, Zions Bank, Roaring Springs Water Park, and more of our board members. Thank you all again. Have a great rest of your week. And remember, keep Meridian healthy and open for business. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.